Now let's actually go ahead and see how the plotting works in Matlab, right? So our objective is actually to create the sine function represented in a figure in the Matlab. So how it actually happens, right? So if you have used the matplotlib.pyplot, right, from the Python packages, right, you might know how to actually plot, right? And there is also a plot function in that. So you have similar stuff here, right? And you might have actually worked with the say numpy arrays and also vectors, so you will actually get the help of same. So see the first line. We have created the plot plot sine.m file. Just remember that you don't need to name your file names with the functions which are already defined. So sine is already a function, so you can't actually name any file sine.m, right? You have to actually define it uniquely other than the functions which are available by MATLAB, because every file is actually kind of say a function which you can call in MATLAB. I will actually explain it later. So basically, the first line is actually creating a particular vector which is starting from 0, which is incremented by 0.1 value, and then it's actually ending by 2 multiplied by pi. Now, pi, what is this pi? Pi is actually an invent variable which is defined by MATLAB. That's actually a constant that's actually having a value of 3.14 and so on, right? That particular value, non-terminating value, right, of pi. So these kind of values are, or constants are already available by the MATLAB environment for you to access them, right? So you can see that these three things are being separated by these columns, right? You can have a look at, yeah, first, second, and third. First is actually your starting value. The second, the last is your ending value, and this is your increment. So the values will be something like that: 0, 0.1, 0.2, and so on, right? So if we actually come here, right, this and then x, right, what will happen? Let me comment all the stuffs, right, as you might have worked with overlays, so the comment actually starts with this percentage symbol, right? So if I actually go ahead and run this particular file, right, you can see that the values are somewhat like here: 0, 0.1, 0.2, and then these actually go up to the 6.20 values, right? So 3.14 till that particular value, and on the increment of 0.1, these values are keep on going, right? So this is actually what is actually inside x, right? Now what happens when you actually supply these all values into the sign? So if you have worked with the vectorized operation, then what happens is that for each of those values which are defined in this particular vector, the sign will be calculated for the same. So if we actually just print the y values, right? If we just print the y values, then what happens? Just see, right? So you can see the y values are also getting printed with the negative values to something to something, right? Which are actually the corresponding sign values of these particular values, right? For which we have, these are the x values and these are corresponding y values, right? As we know, 0 sine 0 is 0, and these are the values in radians, and these are the values of the corresponding signs. Right now, what happens is that the function comes which is plot xy, and you don't need to import anything for this, right? It is already available for you in the MATLAB environment. So if you actually just plot x and y, the x-axis will be actually your x-axis there, right? And the y values will be something like this. So your plot will be like this, right? If you want to give this particular figure a title, right? So just uncomment this one, title and sine wave. So your title will actually appear on a figure, something like this. As you can see, sine wave title is coming up. Now you want to give this some labels. So you can actually just define x label, and then in this x and y label, and then y, right? Something like this, right? Semicolons at the end of statements, right? If you want to define, right? Okay, so x label and x, right? Currently there are no labels. Now you want to actually define the labels, right? So you just run it, and then x and y also appears, right? Something like that, right? I believe that's actually okay. So there are different options also, right, for you to save this particular figure and export something like this. That, like, for example, let me actually just have sign something like that .png, sign1.png, and then hit save. You will be actually having this particular image also here for you to use up later on, right? And then if you want to actually also have the grid line, so you can actually mention grid space on, and then you will actually be able to see the grid lines into your particular function. One important thing is that you can stretch this particular figure, and the figure will actually adjust accordingly. So that's actually one benefit which you actually get in MATLAB other than the matplotlib.pyplot of the Python. So that's all for plotting a particular function in MATLAB. Thank you so much, everyone.